This is a PSX-R we've got to look at today, and it's not powering up. There's no sign of life on the front panel, and not even standby light. So having a look inside, there's nothing obviously wrong. There's no visible signs of any explosions anyway. And the fact that there's no standby light, that points us to the 5-volt supply's a bit going to be questionable. That's your first protocol there. So the easiest thing to do is just probe one of the logic devices and see if it's got 5 volts. And there we are, it's reading 635 millivolts. So 5-volt supply is definitely gone. And this is the 5-volt regulator here. This is -5. And we've already essentially looked at the output of the 5-volt one. Let's have a look at the input. And the input's reading 41 volts, and that tells me that's another problem there. 41 volt input to the 5-volt regulator. I can't remember what the limit is on these regulators, but it's a lot lower than that. Let's just have a look at the negative regulator here. So that's got -22 on its input, which is a bit more healthy. And then we can find the output pin. There's the output there, 4.95, a little bit low, but that's working just fine. And how these regulators work is they take the main supply and they use a power zener to drop it down to something that this thing can deal with. So when I see the sort of 40 odd volts in the input, that zener's got to be suspect. So we'll have to obviously get the board out and take these parts out and see what's going on there. So just zoomed in a little bit closer now. I have to have a think about what I'm going to do here, whether I just replace these like for like or try and do something a bit more robust. I think the newer models, they use a transistor dropper instead of the zener, which is a little bit better. But it's still, in my mind, to try and generate 5 volts from a 50 volt rail is just kind of, it's not a great starting point, you'd generally start with something a little bit lower, and it would simply be a case of having another winding on the transformer and generate a dedicated rail for that. That's the proper way to do that. Anyway, so this is obviously what we have, so we'll work with it. The other, one of the things that upsets me when I see these kind of designs, we've got this zener here, which we know is going to be very hot, and it's immediately next to the capacitor for the regulator. That's deliberate. There's no one that's managed to design this board goes and does that by accident. And this, as I see it, is a built-in mechanism to limit the life of these kind of products. That capacitor's getting hot, and you can actually even see the colouring on the packaging that's somewhat faded. So that's positioned there deliberately so that it's got a limited lifespan. And the same on the other side, obviously. In fact, it's a little bit worse because it's closer to the regulator and the zener there also. They're both gonna be cooking that thing and just destroying its lifespan. The other thing I find amusing in these designs is these capacitors. They're rated at 50 volts, and so generally, if I saw anything more than sort of 70% of the rated voltage, I would be raising questions. In the day job anyway. That would be my kind of cause for concern. When I look at these 50 volt rated capacitor, let's have a look. Nearly 52 volts. So they're running them at the absolute limit, and these are probably very good capacitors, and they can deal with it. But that's just something you don't do. Anyway, as I say, this is what we have. So I think the next step is we'll get the board out. We'll determine exactly you know, what the state of these Zeners, etc. is, and then see where we go from there. Here's the board removed then, and you can see the scorch marks under these the Zener and the regulator. The board's just all burnt there. Soldering's a bit shocking as well on these things. I mean, I have to comment though, the board 1994, so it's lasted 27 years despite these kind of things I was commenting on there. So although I was saying 1994 was the date on the board, of course we don't know how hard a life this unit's had, don't know how many hours of operation, and also I don't know when it went faulty. You know, it's coming to me now, but may have been faulty for a while. Anyway, I've got these three obviously dead parts out here, and there may be more to find, but for now we'll work on this area. And I've confirmed both the Zener and the regulator is dead. And between these two parts, they're dissipating about 1.5 watts, and then this capacitor is sandwiched in between them, getting fairly warm. And then I look at the part, and it's spec'd at 85 degrees. You know, and again, if you're going to have a capacitor near a warm device, you make sure it's rated for higher temperature. You know, I'd at least be expecting 105 degree part in there. So let's go and measure the thing. I don't expect there's going to be very much left in this thing, but let's just see what the meter tells us. And this is a 10 microfarad part, and the meter's essentially reading 0 there, 0.1 nano. That just means it's off the bottom of the scale. So that capacitor has been dry for a long time, even before this unit failed. And you know, primarily because it's just in that warm environment. So there we go. Right, so I've been kind of pondering on how best to handle the repair here. If it was mine, I would probably sort of add some transistor dropper, and then I could get a heatsink on the transistor, etc., and do all that kind of stuff. But it's not mine, and so I think we're better just keeping it as factory. And so I'm going to replace the Zener like for like, and we'll obviously replace the capacitor and anything else we find, any of the other capacitors. And then I think I'll obviously have to replace the regulator, and I'll add a small heatsink to that regulator, just to try and get a bit of heat out of that area. So we'll do that, and that keeps it factory, and you know, just the heatsink will just help things in the right direction. And that should be good to go. So I'll have to order these Zeners, so we'll come back when they're arrived. In the meantime, I'm going to go around and we'll check all the other capacitors and replace everything that needs to be done there. Alright, so I've got the replacement Zener in there now, and I've changed these capacitors, put in higher temperature parts in there. These are 105 degree parts. And I went round the rest of the board, changed the capacitors there as well that were dry. So I've not yet put the regulator in. What I've done here is I've just put a resistor, 1k resistor to ground from this Zener, and I just want to make sure, before I put everything in place, I want to make sure that the input voltage to the regulator that we're going to replace is all right, you know, before we put it in and we blow it up kind of thing. So we'll just make sure that doesn't happen. So we'll just power up here, and previously we saw 52 volts nearly on the output of the main supply here, and then we've got a 24 volt Zener. So I'm expecting about 28 volts across this resistor. So we're powered up, and there we go, just over 27, and probably this supply's dropped a little bit now because I've got a bit of a load on it. can't remember the exact number before, but that's still over the 50 volts by a good bit. Anyway, I'm quite happy with that 27 odd volts there. So I think we'll go and put the regulator in now. And then I've got these heat clips that we'll just install these on the regulators as well, and that'll just help to pull the heat away for this area, and it just lessens the stress on these parts and gives them the best chance of a good long life. So I'll put it in that regulator, and then we'll measure the voltages after that. So we've got the new regulator in, and they put these heat clips on, and you can see I've bent the regulators away from the capacitor. I'll bend this one a little bit later. I need to allow room to put that screw in, but once it's all screwed together I'll just bend these a little bit to move them away from the capacitors as much as possible. So it's powered up now, and if we go and probe on just one of the logic devices, we can see our 5 volt supply is quite happy there, quite stable. So that's all good, that's all up and running. Now I was going to go and change the zener on the negative rail also, and you can see it's a different part that's in there. And the reason for that is that the plus 5 volts is powering all this logic device, all this logic circuitry here. Whereas the negative rail, it's only really being used as a reference and for some of the op-amp supplies and things like that. So it's not pulling as much current, and what they've done to save a few pennies is they've put a lower power zener in there, and then there's less chance of this thing, the negative rail, going faulty anyway, just because you're pulling less current. So I'm going to leave that alone. That's just fine. So we think everything's working now, but the thing is, these PSX-Rs can pair with many other products, many other Cyrus products, and the PSX-R behaves differently depending on what it's connected to. So this is labelled as an intelligent power supply then. Its output voltage is dependent on what host it's connected to. You know, the host sends out a control voltage, and then the power supply will give a corresponding output. And of course we don't know what it's going to be connected to. It could be connected to any other Cyrus product, and so we need to make sure that it's that it's operational over its full range. And the way we can do that is that we can apply a voltage to the control line just using an external power supply, and then we monitor the output voltage in sympathy with that. And that's why I've got 3 DMMs here. So the blue one here we're going to use to monitor the input, and then the 2 orange ones we'll use to check the output level. So with 0 volts on the control line, we expect plus or minus 21 volts on the output. And you can see here we've got 20 point something, and it's not quite close to the 21 volts. And that's just down to the tolerance of the components here, and the fact that they're using these basically standard 5 volt regulators. They're using that as the reference, so the accuracy of the output in this thing is quite wide. So that's one of 3 modes of operation. 0 volts in, we should get plus or minus 21 out. Now as we increase the control voltage, we go into the second mode of operation, where we expect an output that is essentially 10 times the control voltage. There's a times 10 function on the circuitry here, and you can see we're inputting 1.5, and they've essentially got my plus and minus 15, 10 times that on the output, given the tolerance. And as I vary that level on the input, you can see the output tracks 10 times. So there's 2 volts, and we've got nearly 20 on each of these lines, and that continues up to something like 32 volts, I think, that operation, that variable operation. And then above that, if we just go right up to sort of 4 volts-ish on the input, then we go into the third mode of operation here, where it's a fixed 35 volts on the output. And so that's what we can see here. So we're quite happy that the 3 modes are doing as we expect, and that we can track the input voltage just fine. So that tells me, the thing's functioning just perfectly, and it'll be good to go with any other Cyrus product. So we're happy everything's working. I think it's time to put the covers on, and then we'll just connect it up to another unit and make sure the sort of on-off functionality and that kind of stuff's working just fine, and that should be us done. Here we are then, all boxed up, and I'm connected to a Cyrus 8 integrated amp here, and of course when I hit the switch on the 8, the PSX-R should just come on in sympathy, and that's what we get there. So all good. So let's just turn up the volume and have a quick listen.